have watched Iran change over the years, women testing the limits with headscarves, brightly colored clothing, and generally pushing back on these restrictions. But Iran does not tolerate dissent, so I expect this to get bloodier in the coming days. Cecilia.
I always appreciate your perspective, Martha. Thank you.
These are the largest, most sweeping anti-government protests in Iran in years. Women leading the way after decades of repression and now a suspicious death. The seventh day of protests sweeping across Iran, prompted by the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. Amini died in the custody of the so-called morality police after her arrest last week for wearing a headscarf improperly. This edited footage, released by Iranian authorities on September 16th, allegedly showing Amini in custody, walking up to someone, then collapsing. The next shot showing her taken out on a stretcher to an ambulance. We do not see how she was treated prior to the incident. Iranian officials saying she suffered a heart attack from a previous health condition, but Amini's father calling that a lie, saying she had no prior health issues and was killed at the hands of police. Strict Islamic law in Iran requires women to cover their hair, but Amini's death galvanizing women cutting their hair and burning their hijabs. All of it with great risk. At least 15 protesters have been killed in clashes with the police. President Biden on the world stage voicing his support for protesters.
We stand with the brave citizens and the brave women of Iran who right now are demonstrating to secure their basic rights.
The administration issuing sanctions in response to the incident and other human rights violations, calling on the Iranian government to end its systemic persecution of women and allow peaceful protest.
So-called referendums now beginning in Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine will not be free and fair. One Russian-appointed official stating that the authorities will be going door to door with the police so people can vote at home. The
I'm Surya Gangadharan, and this evening our focus is on Balochistan. I have a small map here for you. Balochistan is Pakistan's biggest province, sparsely populated, bordering the Arabian Sea. There's been a long simmering insurgency here, and it seems to have taken an uptick in recent weeks with attacks in a place called Kech. I hope they've got the pronunciation right, where 10 Pakistani soldiers were killed by the Baloch Liberation Army. There have also been attacks in places like Pangjur and Noshki, and more Pakistani soldiers were killed there, around 4. So it appears that the insurgency is taking a new turn. We'll have more from our guest here, Alok Bansal, formerly of the Navy, currently director of the India Foundation, and a specialist on Balochistan. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
My first question. What do you make of these attacks? How serious are they from a Pakistani point of view?
See, these are extremely serious because after 2006, there have been no frontal attacks by Baloch insurgents on army strongholds, especially in Nushki and Panjgur. They not only attacked the frontier post district headquarters, but also held on to the post. See, attacking and running away is a different thing, which is an insurgent tactics all over the world. But trying to capture and hold it shows the confidence that the insurgents had in their capabilities, that they could thwart the security forces for over 24 hours, 48 hours, and keep them at bay. So they have not only succeeded in accessing all the weapons and ammunition that was also available. What was even more important was that in these particular attacks, the Baloch insurgents were willing to sacrifice their life. It was to some extent a Fedayeen attack, you can say, where actually the people who were attacking stayed put and fought till the last bullet. So that is a different dimension of the insurgency that we are seeing in Balochistan, because this revival is taking place almost 1.5 decades after Nawab Akbar Khan Bukti was killed in August 2006, and the last major flare-up where the Baloch had targeted a well-protected establishment was in actually 2005 when they had attacked the PPL complex in Sui. So it's after a long back time that we are seeing this sort of a heightened level of insurgency that we are seeing in Balochistan.
So, can they sustain this? And where is their support coming from?
See, the first issue which we need to understand is that the Baloch alienation with the state of Pakistan is more or less complete. But having said that, Baloch do not have the critical mass to break away from Pakistan. Because please understand, as you said, Balochistan comprises 43% of Pakistan's landmass, but is inhabited by less than 5% of its population. So that itself tells you the problems of Baloch. Their numbers, their absolute numbers are very low. The fact that this is a hyper-arid zone, extremely parched, allows them to sustain the insurgency, because Pakistani army cannot live off the land. So they have to depend on long lines of communications. And Baloch tactics has been to target these lines of communications and target those infrastructure which link Balochistan to rest of Pakistan, like railway lines, the road bridges, or electricity pylons which connect the electricity grid, or gas pipelines, which have been their favorite targets. But they don't have the critical mass to break away. So unless, of course, something goes wrong and where the Pakistan army withers away, Balochistan will find it difficult to break up. And consequently, Baloch have always been trying to create a grand alliance of all ethnic minorities against Punjabis. If you look at it, they initially tried to set up a Baloch Sindhi Mahaz, where they tried to bring Sindhis with them. In fact, it is widely believed that Sindhu Desh Liberation Army is actually under the protective control of BLA. So all the insurgency activities which were witnessed in last few years in Sindh have been sponsored by them. Nawab Akbar Khan Bukti, after the incident in Sui, had actually made a very strong statement against Sindhis, because the lady doctor who was raped in PPL complex in Sui was a Sindhi lady doctor, where he says that Sindhi should have protested more than us, but I don't appeal to dead people. That was a very powerful statement meant to instigate Sindhis. They have been very partly successful. They have also been part of Pakistan oppressed nations movement, where they've tried to bring Pakhtuns, Baloch and Sindhis together. So Baloch realize that their only chance of success is if they can garner a coalition of ethnic minorities. Thus, the insurgency has reached a stage where alienation is complete. It has reached a stage where it is looking for an external sponsor of insurgency. They need an external support directly, which they are not getting to that extent, because one of the problems with Baloch insurgency is that it also threatens Iran. And Iranians have always been concerned with an insurgency in Balochistan. In fact, the last major insurgency that happened in Pakistan from 73 to 77, 78, the last Baloch insurgency, the Pakistan's army and air force was actively supported by Iranian air force and troops, because that time it was Shah of Iran who was in power, and he sent an air force detachment to support them. So without that external support, it will be difficult. For a very long period of time, Afghanistan did provide them some support. And there are, of course, reports, the Pakistanis often claim that Indians are supporting. In fact, they say that even during this incidents which have taken place, they have monitored communication between India, Afghanistan and the Baloch. But I think it looks more a figment of imagination than reality, because of all the 4 provinces of Pakistan, the only province which does not have a contiguous border with India is Balochistan.
Yeah.
So for India, it is practically not feasible to do anything without direct contact with them. But here we also need to understand that there are a large number of Baloch live in UAE and Oman, and especially with Oman because Gwadar had a historical connection with Oman. And when Gwadar was returned, one of the conditionalities was that the Baloch will be permitted to work in Omani's armed forces. So a large number of Baloch have served in Omani armed forces, and there are still large number of expatriates in these two countries, from where a lot of financial support comes, because the Baloch diaspora is been supporting the insurgency to a very great extent. Of course, on the flip side, there are a lot of chinks as far as Baloch armor is concerned, because Baloch ethnicity is not very clearly defined. It's actually a recent construct. When you say who's a Baloch, the Baloch speak two different strands of Balochi, coupled with a very large number of people who speak a language called Brahvi. Now, both of them call themselves Baloch, but Brahvi and Balochi are as different as chalk from cheese, because Balochi is an Aryan Persian language and Brahvi is a Dravidian language akin to Tamil and Gondi. So that's a major difference. Of course, Pashtuns inhabit the northern Balochistan, which is a smaller territory but densely populated. So when we look at provincial composition, there is a very, very significant Pashtun composition. But I'm talking about the people who call themselves Baloch are also not ethno-linguistically homogeneous. But this narrative of Balochistan's persecution by the Pakistani state has been built up to such a level that both Balochi and Brahvi consider themselves as Baloch and are united in their fight against the Pakistani state.
Now, you were mentioning Afghanistan a little while ago. Could it be that the victory of the Taliban in Afghanistan has emboldened the BLA? Is there any connect between them and the Taliban, or perhaps even the TTP?
See, we need to understand that the fall of Kabul on 15th August 2021 has emboldened insurgents across the globe. Because now any ragtag militia feels that if Taliban can defeat the United States of America, we can also deal with any state. So that boost, the psychological boost which all such insurgent outfits have received is enormous. Ideologically, Baloch insurgents are left-leaning secularists. So they have really actually never got along very well with the religious groupings per se. So at best, there can be a tactical alliance with TTP or things like that. Otherwise, a long-term alliance between Baloch nationalists, TTP or Taliban in Afghanistan has not been the case. In fact, it was the previous regimes which have been providing support to Baloch nationalists. And so they should have been a little more vulnerable with the arrival of Taliban into the scene in Afghanistan, because Taliban has very good connections with the ISI, as you all know.
Yeah. Do you see any element of radicalization in Balochistan because of all these years of oppression, perhaps the growth of Islamic consciousness, identity?
See, Pakistan, right from 47, has tried to subsume the ethnic identity of people by promoting an all-inclusive Islamic identity. Yeah. They successfully tried that in Pakhtunistan, because in 47-48, the biggest threat to them from Pakhtun nationalism. So as you will realize, from 47-48, NWFP, they encouraged, and now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, they encouraged religious political parties and promoted a religious thought. The similar tactics was also tried in Balochistan in 2001-2002. That was the time when they had an MMA government. But the Baloch, by and large, have rejected this religious dogma which Pakistani state has tried to propagate, barring in the Iranian part, because the Baloch insurgency in Iranian part has assumed a sectarian hue, because the Jundullah, which is the predominant group which is fighting in Iranian Balochistan, has a sectarian outlook. But all the Baloch outfits, and when I say all, I mean major. The major outfits and the predominant Baloch outfits are extremely secular. BLA, the Baloch Liberation Army, BRA, Balochistan Republican Army, or BLF, the Balochistan Liberation Front. And now you have an alliance. Of course, there are numerous new outfits come. Most of them are left-leaning secularists. In fact, BLA was very, very close to the communist ideology. In fact, in 70s, the insurgency was actively supported by communists from rest of Pakistan, like people like Tariq Fateh and Najam Malik. All these people who were Punjabis had also joined the Baloch insurgency. Dalip Das, who was a Sindhi Hindu. All these people had joined the Baloch insurgency of the 70s because they were driven by this leftist agenda of communist state.
So, what is the future of this insurgency? If, as you say, the Baloch population is so low, the resources virtually nil, international support severely lacking, where does it go? I mean,
See, I think the Baloch insurgency has reached a stage where it is actively looking for an external sponsor. And there are two things which they are looking for. They are looking for some via media by which Pakistani state's security apparatus crumbles. It could be due to a severe financial crisis, or could be due to a war or conflict with another actor. Like now, if PTP starts targeting Pakistani army and you have a conflict, then they have an opportunity. But their strategy has been to widen the support base of Baloch by creating a united front of all ethnic minorities. They've been trying to bring Sindhis, Pakhtuns, etc. on the same front and confront the Pakistani state. And for that, if you see, the provisional government has been from time to time coming out with statements which target Punjabis. In fact, they had, as early as 2008, they had said that all Punjabi Muslims in our territory are valid targets. They've also tried to take a stance against China to seek support from the West, especially the United States, because they said the Chinese are helping Islamabad to colonize our land. So all Chinese companies and Chinese assets are valid targets for us. So the attempts have been to widen the scope of the conflict, get external actors to support them, get other ethnic minorities to support them. That has been the aim. In fact, even tactically, if you look at it, their targets have been more infrastructural projects and security personnel than any targeting of human beings. So there have been lesser casualties, but more damage in terms of equipment and infrastructure. Their targets have invariably been only security personnel, their collaborators, and Punjabi settlers. These are the three categories of people they have invariably targeted as far as personnel are concerned. But in terms of targeting of infrastructure, they have regularly targeted railway lines, gas pipelines, electricity pylons, which connect grid Balochistan to the rest of the grid, and all those issues.
So, Pakistan, a lot of fault lines over there. You mentioned the collaboration between the BLA and the Sindhis. Do you see this taking on a broader, there are Pashtuns also in the northern frontier who are dissatisfied. And a lot of the fighting that the TTP is doing also is in a certain direction. Are these fault lines in Pakistan deepening?
See, there is no doubt about it that Pakistan's fault lines are deepening. In fact, Pakistan's founders, right from the beginning, did not realize that they thought that just by propagating one singular religious identity, they'll be able to subsume the ethnic fault lines, so which has not happened. In fact, 71 proved it. And now subsequently, we are seeing other ethnic fault lines coming into being. So there are ethnic fault lines. PTM is the clearest manifestation of Pakhtun dissatisfaction with Pakistani state. Now, TTP, unfortunately, is a different ball game, because TTP ideologically is a different thing, because they talk of pan-Islamism. They are under establishment of an emirate. And pan-Islamism, by definition, does not believe in ethnic fault lines or ethnic divisions. So TTP, to that extent, is not something which would actually find it easy to coexist with Baloch Liberation Army or Baloch Liberation Front, which has an existential, which has an idea of a secular Baloch state, which is an ethnicity-based identity. But yes, with PTM, there could be collusion. But the problem is, historically, in the past, you've had a little division between Pakhtuns and Baloch in Balochistan, because both were initially contesting for the same resources, and Baloch feel that they could be marginalized. And as I said, in terms of population, you have a significant Pakhtun population in Balochistan province. Now, when we talk of Baloch and Balochistan, there are of course differences. As you say, there are large number of Baloch who live outside Balochistan. In fact, according to reports, there are more Baloch who live outside Balochistan than in Balochistan. Because a large number of Sindhis are Baloch. And now, when we talk of Baloch in Sindh, there are 2 or 3 different types of Baloch. One are Sindhi-speaking Baloch. The Baloch tribes who actually lived in Sindh have now amalgamated so much that they speak Sindhi. Then there are Baloch-speaking Baloch tribes. Then there are Baloch tribes in southern Punjab, some in parts of NWFP. So the ethnic identity and the provincial boundaries do not always correlate. Then, more importantly, there is a significant population of Baloch both in Iran and in Afghanistan. So that complicates the issue a little bit, because Baloch have not got that sort of an external support which other insurgents could have got.
I recall many years ago, during I think the Bush administration, there was a map which came out showing Balochistan being amalgamated from various territories in Iran, Pakistan, and so on.
That was actually a proposal by a gentleman called Ralph Peters, who was a lieutenant colonel in US Marines, and he came up with an article writing Blood Borders, where he actually said that this entire Muslim world needs to be restructured. He talked of an entire Muslim world being restructured, and he drew that map, which was an interesting map which had a sovereign Balochistan, of course, and a Shiite Arab state in the southern part of Iran. And of course, he had different Kurdistan and independent Kurdistan and things like that. At some stage, people believed that neocons actually supported that sort of an idea. But neocons have been in decline because with the rise of Trumpism and Republican Party, ideologies in Republican Party has already taken a backseat. So I think there has not been much progress to that extent. However, I do believe that Baloch insurgents have always been in touch with the US intelligence agencies and have received some amount of support from US agencies, all through, because there is a congruence of interest as far as Baloch and US are concerned, because Baloch insurgency prevents Iran's pipeline, Iran-Pakistan pipeline, and US also realizes that the best way of controlling Iran is by creating insurgencies along its periphery, because the regime change will not work. Also, they know that in case the Pakistani states totally goes hostile, they want to have an option open for independent access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Although now Afghanistan is under Taliban rule, but that had been their desire to keep an independent access, and which they feel a sovereign Balochistan could do that.
So last question, where does India figure in all this? Do we figure at all? The Pakistanis make various claims and charges. Where do we stand?
See, very difficult to say. It is in India's interest that Pakistan, which is a byproduct of two-nation theory, disintegrates, because unlike others, I sincerely believe that a Pakistan, which is a construct of two-nation theory, poses an ideological, existential threat to secular India and vice versa. So to that extent, any successor state which does not abide by the divisive two-nation theory is actually a welcome thing. So if you actually create a secular Balochistan, it's a desirable thing, because then you get an independent access to Afghanistan and Central Asia, independent of both Pakistan and Iran, which has a perpetual problem with the United States. So to that extent, we have a definite advantage. It also weakens Pakistan, which has been a constant bugbear as far as India is concerned. And of course, there are a lot of other inherent benefits if actually disintegration of Pakistan does take place into ethnicity-based provinces, because that would actually sound the final death knell of the divisive two-nation theory. It can resolve a lot of issues, because successor states would look towards India to mediate into their eventual problems, because unlike in the case of Bangladesh, If there is any further division of Pakistan, there will be a lot of lingering issues about transfer of population, resources, river waters, boundaries, all sorts of things. And this would require invariably an external arbitration, which India could do and could probably strengthen its influence. And also, I have always believed that eventual aim of India should be the establishment of South Asian Economic Union, which eventually leads to some sort of a confederation of South Asia. That is only possible when a state premised on the very antithesis of this, that is the two-nation theory, actually disintegrates, because then successor states would have no ideological baggage to carry as far as integration of the South Asian Union or coming together of the South Asian states is concerned. So I feel that for further integration of South Asia, probably a disintegration of Pakistan, or at least its shunning of the two-nation theory, that divisive ideology is a must. And I think to that extent, India should have an interest. Whether India is doing anything or not doing anything, I'm in no position to comment, being a simple analyst, because if this would be the case, then that would be in the classified domain. But as one Pakistani analyst once asked me, that if you are not doing something like this, then why are you being angelically stupid? Now, I have no answer to that question.
Very interesting analysis, Alok Bansal. Pleasure talking to you. And I'm sure we'll have more occasion to talk about this subject going forward. Thank you again very much.
مردم حق قانونی خودشون رو که در این 43 سال از بین رفته رو از این رژیم سفاک میخوان. این رژیمی که آدم کشه، این رژیمی که زبون قانون متوجه نمیشه، این رژیمی که دختر و پسر رو در هر شرایطی به کشتار میکشونه، مردم عادی و سیویلیان رو میکشه و هیچ اهمیتی به مردم نمیده. ما باید این رژیم رو بیاریم پایین و تمام شهرهای ایران برای این کار با هم متحد شدن و تا آخرش هستن.
خیلی ممنون، سپاسگزارم از شما. اینجا معترضان در داخل در وسط خیابان اینجا صدای مرگ بر خامنه‌ای و مرگ بر خمینی تصاویر مهسا هست و پرچم‌هایی که در دست معترضان هست و اینجا عکس‌های مهسا هست و کماکان در واقع تصمیم داره که اینجا برای ساعت‌ها ادامه بدن این اعتراضشون. بگذارین از یکی از دیگر از معترضان بپرسم، شما چرا نمیخواید صحبت بکنید؟ شما چرا اینجا اعتراض کردید؟ برای اعتراض چرا اینجا در وسط خیابان هستید؟ صحبت نمیکنن معترضان، هرچند اینجا چون صدا و شلوغ از یک مقدار صداشان بلند نمیشه و خاطر نمیخواد صحبت بکنن، ولی معترضان کماکان در اینجا حضور دارن.
ممنونم از تو تاج‌الدین سروش، همکارم که در مقابل ساختمان سفارت جمهوری اسلامی در لندن هستی، در میان معترضان و صدای اونها هستی. به نظر میرسه که بعد از چند روز ایرانیان مقیم انگلستان تونستن همدیگه رو پیدا بکنن و این جمعیت روز به روز داره گسترده تر میشه. اعتراضهای سراسری در ایران با وجود حاکم کردن فضای امنیتی در بسیاری شهرها و سرکوبگری نهادهای انتظامی و امنیتی ادامه دارد. معترضان دیشب در مناطق مختلف تهران از شرق تهران خیابان نارمک تا غرب شهرک اکباتان راهی خیابانها شدند. اعتراضهای سراسری به تهران محدود نشد و در شهرهای مهاباد، پیرانشهر، سنندج، مشهد، کرج، اهواز، آمل، بندر انزلی، تبریز و اصفهان معترضان به شکل‌های مختلف از جمله حضور در خیابان، به صدا درآوردن بوق خودروها و فریاد از پنجره و پشت بام به سرکوب و فضای ارعاب اعتراض کردند.
مترو صادقیه 2
و ابوالفضل قدیانی از مخالفان جمهوری اسلامی در ایران در پیامی با اشاره به آغاز دومین هفته از اعتراضهای سراسری در کشور نوشته مطالبات مردم ارتقا یافته و به درستی و هوشمندی اصل نظام و شخص علی خامنه‌ای را هدف گرفته. قدیانی نوشته تغییر نظام جمهوری اسلامی و برکناری علی خامنه‌ای جبار و خودکامه ایران مطالبه حق مسلم مردم ایران است. قدیانی خطاب به نیروهای امنیتی و انتظامی گفت تیراندازی به سوی مردم معترض جنایت است. تفنگ‌های خود را زمین بگذارید، به مردم بپیوندید یا لااقل از فرمان مافوق خود سرپیچی کنید.
against military bases in southwest Pakistan, coming on top of other recent attacks, including against international targets in the country. This has drawn renewed attention to one of the world's longest running but relatively little known independence movements. But what makes this insurgency particularly significant is that it carries far wider implications. Hello and welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name is James Ker-Lindsay, and here I take an informed look at international relations, conflict, security, and statehood. Around the world, numerous armed insurgent groups are fighting to unite with another country or establish their own independent states. These include significant movements in Nigeria, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Turkey, Indonesia, and Myanmar, to name just a few. While we tend to think of these insurgencies as essentially internal affairs, they often have much greater regional and even international effects. One of the most notable and yet surprisingly little known campaigns is centered on efforts to secure an independent Balochistan. The Islamic Republic of Pakistan lies in South Asia. To its north is Afghanistan, to its east is China and India, and to its south is the Arabian Sea. Iran lies along its western border. At 880,000 square kilometers or 340,000 square miles, it's the 33rd largest of the 193 members of the UN. The country's population is currently around 220 million. This makes it the fifth most populous country in the world after China, India, the United States, and Indonesia. While most Pakistanis are Sunni Muslim, with small Hindu and Christian minorities, the country is made up of various distinct ethnic groups. This includes the Baloch. Speaking a language related to Iranian, they represent around 3.5% of the population. As a group, they're mainly located in the south and west of the country, where, at least according to official data, they represent a slight majority in Balochistan, the largest but most sparsely populated of Pakistan's 4 top-level provinces. Additionally, while it's thought that around 2/3 of Baloch live in Pakistan, around 30% live in southeast Iran and South Afghanistan. There are also diaspora communities in Europe and North America. Balochistan has a long history. With the archaeological record showing settlements dating back 9,000 years, Alexander the Great passed through the area in 325 BC. Later, it would come under Arab and then Mongol rule. However, for our purposes, the story really begins in the mid-19th century. As Persia seized control of West Balochistan, Britain pushed up northwards as it extended its growing influence in South Asia. Following the First Afghan War in 1839, it took direct control of parts of Balochistan. Meanwhile, the region's princely states became vassals of the wider British Indian Empire. In August 1947, Imperial India was partitioned. This led to the creation of the new Hindu-dominated Union of India and the Muslim-majority Dominion of Pakistan, which in turn was divided into 2 parts, West and East Pakistan, the latter of which is now the People's Republic of Bangladesh. As part of this process, the myriad of princely states across the subcontinent were given a choice between independence or union with India or Pakistan. While most of the states in Balochistan eventually decided to join Pakistan, the largest, the Khanate of Kalat, chose independence. Despite this, in the months that followed, Pakistan put heavy pressure on the Khan to accept unification. Amidst rumours that he'd been looking instead to unite with India, on the 27th of March 1948, the Khan finally agreed to accede to Pakistan, a controversial decision many Baloch regarded and still regard as illegitimate. In 1955, the Khanate was formally abolished and the various parts of historic Balochistan were united to form a single administrative unit. From the start, tensions emerged in the region. As well as armed opposition to the territory's incorporation into Pakistan in 1948, there were further uprisings in the late 1950s and early 1960s. In July 1970, and against a backdrop of growing secessionist sentiment in East Pakistan, the military rulers reconstituted West Pakistan. Balochistan became the largest of the country's 4 new top-level provinces. Despite this, yet another major uprising broke out in 1973. This lasted until 1977, when it too was put down. Over the next 2.5 decades, tensions appeared to subside. However, in 2005, a new insurgency erupted. Set against the backdrop of the war in neighbouring Afghanistan, this time the revolt was driven by a combination of Pakistan's growing military presence in the region and persistent economic underdevelopment. While semi-arid, Balochistan is resource-rich, with large deposits of gold, copper, gemstones, coal and oil. Despite this, the sparsely populated province has long been neglected by the central government. Even today, by almost every measure, it's still the least developed and poorest part of the country. In response to this new outbreak of violence, the Pakistani authorities cracked down hard on anyone suspected of having separatist sympathies. Although it's unclear just how much public support independents really enjoyed, with some reports suggesting that only 1/3 of the region's inhabitants supported secession, in the years that followed, reports emerged of growing numbers of arrests and disappearances. And while many detainees were eventually released, albeit often after months of torture, thousands more were killed, prompting widespread condemnation from leading international human rights bodies. By 2013, international observers were warning about the region's descent into anarchy. As well as concerns about Pakistan's heavy-handed response to the uprising, there was also growing criticism of the main rebel groups, most notably the Balochistan Liberation Army. Having emerged as the largest and most well-organised of the various separatist groups, it had been formally recognised as a terrorist organisation by the British government as early as 2006. More recently, in 2019, the US State Department also listed it as a terrorist organisation. As the insurgency grew, the BLA's tactics became more extreme and diverse. In addition to its continuing attacks on Pakistani targets, it increasingly focused on China's growing presence in the region. Seen as exploiting Balochistan's natural resources and even turned an occupation by the group, an attack on the Chinese consulate in Karachi in November 2018 left 4 dead. Since then, the group also appears to have stepped up its operations against the Pakistani military. At the end of January 2022, the BLA attacked a military post near the port city of Gwadar. Just days later, at the start of February, it launched attacks on several military bases near Quetta, Balochistan's provincial capital. At this stage, the precise details of the assaults are heavily contested by the sides. According to reports from the Pakistan military, the attacks were highly coordinated and the insurgents were extremely well armed, using foreign-made automatic rifles and night vision goggles. However, it insists that casualties were low. In contrast, the BLA insists that its suicide bombers had killed more than 100 soldiers. Regardless of what exactly happened, the latest attacks are nevertheless seen as the most serious escalation of violence against the military in several years and potentially mark a dangerous new phase in the long-running insurgency. This will no doubt worry Pakistan's leaders. But any increased insurgency will also have other wider and potentially more worrying implications for the country. Most importantly, the attacks will almost certainly heighten China's concerns. For Beijing, Pakistan, including Balochistan, is crucial geopolitical territory. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which includes an extensive range of transport and infrastructure projects totaling more than $60 billion, represents a vital link in the high-profile Belt and Road Initiative that's extending China's economic and political influence around the world. Pakistan's deep-water port in Gwadar provides potentially significant time savings for goods from Western China destined for Africa and Europe. As has been noted, the land route through Pakistan means that Chinese companies can avoid having to send goods to ports in the south and east of China that then have to be shipped through the South China Sea and around India. For these reasons, China will no doubt be watching the escalating situation in Balochistan closely. The BLA's activities have already put the relationship between Islamabad and Beijing under strain, but given the size of its infrastructure and transportation investments in the country, and the role that Pakistan seemingly plays in wider Chinese strategic ambitions, Beijing will also want to make sure that the insurgency not only doesn't grow, but will be brought under control sooner rather than later. It's against this backdrop that the recent attacks will almost certainly put an added strain on Pakistan's wider regional relations. Significantly, the Pakistani government has been quick to blame India and Afghanistan for the recent attacks. Justifying its accusations, Islamabad has not only noted the sophisticated weaponry used by the attackers, but it's also insisted that its intelligence services picked up communications between the attackers and their handlers in the two countries. In the case of India, such claims might be expected. After all, there are long-standing tensions between the two countries, not least of all over Kashmir. Moreover, India has publicly accused Pakistan of supporting terrorist groups operating on its territory. That said, the Indian government has strenuously denied any link to the BLA. In contrast, the claimed link with Afghanistan is perhaps rather more unexpected. After all, Pakistan has long supported the Taliban. However, it's widely understood that this relationship has been strained in recent years, as many suspect that ethnic Pashtuns have now started to look to establish stronger ties with their brethren in Pakistan. But like India, the Taliban has quickly and firmly distanced itself from the attacks, stating that whatever happens in Pakistan is Pakistan's internal affair. There are numerous armed separatist uprisings taking place around the world. One of the longest running campaigns, albeit intermittently, has been the Balochistan independence movement in southwest Pakistan. For over 70 years, since it was controversially incorporated into Pakistan, the region has witnessed at least 5 major uprisings. The most recent and most sustained of these began almost 20 years ago. However, despite efforts by the Pakistani government to crack down on the insurgency, which has led to widespread human rights abuses, the independence campaign has continued. Apart from the domestic impact that this has had, this is increasingly touching on Pakistan's wider international relations, not least of all on its strategically vital relationship with China. In addition, it's also affecting relations with neighbouring India and Afghanistan. All this considered, the question now is what can Islamabad do to put a stop to a separatist conflict that's been going on for over 7 decades and is now compounded by deeply rooted economic, political and social dissatisfaction. I hope you found that useful. If so, here are some more videos that you might find interesting. Thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video.
This $30 bag is taking the travel industry by storm. It keeps all your valuables safe in one place so that you can travel with peace of mind. The anti-theft bag allows you to keep your wallet, passport, phone and keys within hand's reach at all times. This simple
As a woman from Balochistan, I can testify that life for a woman in Pakistan is a tough one.
बलूचिस्तान में आज कितने ही भाई लापता हैं पाकिस्तानी आर्मी के हाथों। हम एक शर्फ रियासत के साथ रहना नहीं चाहते, ये हमारा सियासी हक है। जे तमे हमारा बलूचिस्तान नवास्ते खरूचे एनो गनो गनो अभिमान मिन्नतवर।
A fearless critic of Pakistan, a strong proponent of gender equality, a celebrated crusader of justice, the face of hope and courage. This was Karima Mera Baloch. The prominent Baloch activist was found dead in Canada. Her mysterious death leaves more questions than answers. Clearly, living in exile does not guarantee safety for Pakistan's human rights activists. The province of Balochistan in Pakistan has been witness to a separatist movement for the past 7 decades. Facing death threats and harassment from Pakistan's army and intelligence service, most key Baloch activists are living in exile.
I thank you all for coming here to remember Karima Baloch.
Karima Baloch started her career as a human rights and independence activist in 2005, when she attended a gathering in Turbat, a southern city in Balochistan, to protest against an escalating state-backed program of abduction and torture.
मैं एक स्टूडेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से बिलोंग करती हूँ।
In 2006, she joined the Baloch Students Organization, popularly known as BSO. In the next 10 years, she served in several different positions and eventually became the organization's first female chairperson.
Sona Bhutti's family.
During these years, Karima traveled all over Balochistan, organizing outreach programs such as protests and rallies, and inspired others to join the movement, establishing herself as a recognized grassroots activist. It was a highly visible role. She was clearly ruffling feathers, prompting the Pakistani state to file formal charges
the Balochistan
against
Liberation
her.
Army, also known as the Baloch Liberation Army, is a
Karima
militant
Baloch had to
organization
escape
based in
from
Afghanistan.
Balochistan.
The BLA is listed as a terrorist organization
She
by
fled Pakistan
Pakistan,
and took
United
refuge
Kingdom,
in
and the
Canada.
United States.
She
Since
continued her
2004, the
activism
BLA
from
has waged a
Toronto
violent
and
armed
used her
struggle
social
against
media handles
Pakistan for what it claims
extensively
is
to highlight
self-determination
issues
for the
such
Baloch
as
people in
abductions, torture, forced disappearances, and other human rights violations that Balochis were being subjected to by the Pakistan government and the army. Among other issues, she fought for the rights of Balochi women, highlighting how Pakistan was using state and social machinery to target women, particularly from vulnerable groups. Her last tweet on the 14th of December threw light on the current situation of Balochis in Pakistan. 6 days after this post, Karima disappeared in Toronto. A day after she was reported missing, the Toronto Police Service revealed that her body was found near Toronto's downtown waterfront, a place that she liked and often visited. The police reportedly found her body drowned off an island. Toronto police have not treated her death as suspicious, though there were allegations by her supporters that she was killed. Though Canadian police acknowledged the concerns around Baloch's death, they stated that they had found no evidence of foul play and concluded that her death was non-criminal. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has remained silent on the issue. But Chris Alexander, the former Canadian Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, stated in a tweet, and we quote, "All of us who knew Karima see the circumstances of her death as deeply suspicious. We must leave no stone unturned in uncovering and confronting the reality of what happened to her."
In Balochistan, every day people disappear. Every day. People without a name, people without a face. The only people caring for them are their relatives. Karima is the last one of a totally new phenomena, the disappearing and the killing and the threatening of Baloch dissidents and Pakistani dissidents in general abroad. Before was Sajid Hussein. The modalities are very similar. Both disappeared, both have been found in a stream of water. Both cases have not been enough investigated by the government of Sweden or by the government of Canada.
Looking at all these statements, narratives, incidents, that there is someone behind of all these activities, and for us, we are sure that that is Pakistan hand. That hand they have openly threatened us.
Karima Baloch's body was brought home and laid to rest in the village of Tump in Balochistan under tight security. Only her immediate family were allowed to attend her funeral. Her supporters claim that Pakistani troops had sealed off the village and prevented them from attending her burial.
करीमा बलोच को बहुत 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 बड़ा शोक सलाम। कभी वो दिन भी आएगा कि जब आजाद होंगे हम, ये अपनी ही ज़मीं होगी, ये अपना आसमां होगा। शहीदों के मज़ारों पर लगेंगे हर बरस मेले, वतन पे मरने वालों का यही नामो निशान होगा।
The Baloch National Movement has announced 40 days of mourning for the activist. Karima Baloch's husband, Hamal Haidar, and brother, Samir Merab, have been demanding an investigation, pointing out she had been receiving death threats. So who could have killed her? Her death has brought into focus both the ongoing separatist struggle in Balochistan and the crackdown on dissent in Pakistan. Munir Mengal is president of the Baloch Voice Association. He was abducted by the Pakistani army in 2006 and tortured for 2 years. Munir managed to escape to France, where he has been living in exile since 2008. He has been raising awareness about the Balochistan conflict at various global platforms, including the United Nations.
With me, that they took my phone and then they said, oh, there were continuous calls, so I was not allowed to take the calls. So one officer took the phone, went out, and then came with the news, oh, there's a very sad news that your mother had become mad after getting this news. And this sort of news, they try to psychologically. Then later on, they use some sort of physical punishment, and then, inhumane punishments like trying me to abuse a Baloch female teacher. She was also held incommunicado. Zarina Mari, she was a Baloch teacher. She was kidnapped with her, you can say, small kid, and they tried me to abuse her sexually. So this is some sort of sexual, immoral, and inhumane treatment. And then another, day they took me that now we have received your death warrants from the GHQ, so we are driving to the spot where we have to kill you.
Pakistan is composed of 4 provinces, the provinces of Balochistan, Punjab, Sindh, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Today, the Balochistan region is divided among the countries of Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Almost evenly split between Pakistan and Iran, it is categorized as the provinces of Balochistan and Sistan Balochistan, respectively. Balochistan is the largest province in terms of land area, forming the southwestern region of Pakistan, but is the least populated. Although Balochistan constitutes about 43% of Pakistan's total landmass, Baloch people make up only 5% of the total Pakistani population. According to Pakistan's 2011 census, the main ethnic groups in the province are the Baloch people and the Pashtuns, who constitute 52% and 36% of the population respectively. The remaining 12% belongs to smaller communities such as Brahos, Hazaras, Sindhis, and Punjabis. Balochis are Sunni Muslims and speak Balochi, a northwestern Iranian language. Balochistan is immensely rich in natural resources, including oil, gas, copper, and gold. Pakistan is heavily dependent on the natural resources available in the Balochistan region. Yet it has the highest rural poverty rate, with more than 62% of its rural population living below the poverty line. A vast majority of its population lives in poor housing conditions, with little or no access to education, electricity, or clean drinking water. The conditions are deplorable.
Balochistan is the richest region in Pakistan. His population is the poorest in the country. Why they don't have hospitals, they don't have school, and there's a cultural genocide also going on because they have been forbidden from speaking Baloch, singing their national anthem. They cannot express their culture. Not only this, Taliban and jihadi have been imported in Baloch. And you know, Baloch are mostly secular. No Baloch woman would wear a hijab. But they are trying to force these things on them. This is for culture. And then there's the political thing. They have no hospitals, they have no schools.
The Baloch view their fight as one against this apathy and repression. Balochistan has witnessed regular insurgencies since Pakistan annexed the autonomous Baloch state of Kalat in 1948. The insurgency started right after the Khan of Kalat was forced to sign the Instrument of Accession in 1948. It has broadly occurred in 5 different periods. The Pakistan government has waged military campaigns against Baloch insurgencies in 1948, 1958 to 1959, 1962 to 1963, and 1973 to 1977. Though the insurgencies were crushed with a heavy hand, they left scars which may never heal. The most recent conflict began in the early 2000s and is still active, making it the longest and the most violent one. The Baloch people and many other ethnic identities have been completely alienated from the state as they are numerically inferior. They are inadequately represented in the government, political and judicial systems. And then there's this. The Pashtun and the Baloch have inhabited the region for centuries and are crucial elements of Pakistan's ethnic tapestry. Since its inception in 1947, the Pakistani state has repressed ethno-linguistic identities while pushing for an Islamic identity. Punjabis have traditionally dominated governments in Pakistan, and military regimes have also sought to eradicate ethnic identities.
We received another statement by another general, and he was ex-president of Pakistan, Pervez Musharraf, and that he said this thing clearly on a media show that the Pakistani eyesight should adopt a proactive strategy. And what he describes that proactive strategy, he says that our agencies should follow the Baloch activists and should eliminate them. And he says this thing with a laugh.
While the Pashtun movement has been fighting for the creation of an independent state of Pashtunistan, the Baloch nationalist movement has been demanding political autonomy as well.
The Baloch, Islamabad or Baloch, you can say Pakistan conflict started the day when Pakistan occupied Balochistan by force. We want to regain our sovereignty. We are not someone that we want to occupy any part or land of a Punjabi or a Sindhi or any other one. So if Pakistan is happy with Punjab, we have nothing with Punjab. If Sindhis are happy, okay, Sindhis are happy, okay, not. But we Baloch, we want to regain our sovereignty.
Karima Baloch and other activists believe that Pakistan wants Balochistan only for its natural resources and not its people.
पहले पॉलिटिकल वर्कर्स जो थे या ह्यूमन राइट्स एक्टिविस्ट थे या जर्नलिस्ट थे लोकल जो बलूच थे जो प्रोफेसर्स थे टीचर्स थे उनको उठा के ले जाया जाता था लेकिन अब मशके के इलाके में जाऊ के इलाके में आवारान के इलाके में 6 महीने के बच्चों को उनकी माओं के साथ उठा के वो आर्मी ले जा रही है तो इससे बुरी कंडीशन और क्या हो सकती है किसी कौम के लिए.
It is reported that from 2003 to 2008, more than 8,000 people were kidnapped by Pakistani security in the province. Cases of torture have been reported. Unstable politics and a number of active extremist groups such as Al-Qaeda, Quetta, Shura, Taliban have destabilized the region. On January the 3rd this year, at least 11 coal miners of the Hazara minority were killed in the Makh area of Balochistan after armed militants kidnapped them and took them to a nearby area before opening fire at close range. The throats of the coal miners had been slit after their hands were tied behind their backs and blindfolded. Hazaras have been frequently targeted by Taliban and Islamic State militants and other Sunni Muslim militant groups in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. Though Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan shared his grief in his tweet, he has failed to give any protection to the minorities working in the region. Imran Khan has not commented on Karima Baloch's mysterious death yet, so why is he silent on the issue?
Balochistan, you're bombing people. How can you bomb people? Is this an army you're bombing?
This video is from 2016. On more than one occasion, Imran Khan has admitted that the Pakistan army was bombing villages populated with women and children in Balochistan, even calling it a crime against humanity. But ever since he became the country's prime minister in 2018, he has not given the much promised attention to the region. In fact, in 2019, when Khan was speaking at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Baloch and Pashtun activists put up banners outside the venue to draw the world's attention against Pakistani tyranny.
We have heard different statements from him while he was in the opposition. Now he has came as a, this is said by the Pakistani opposition army, he's just a cowboy or a front boy of Pakistani army. Now his all versions have changed.
Pradhan Mantri Shri Narendra Modi.
Interestingly, in 2016, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi cast the spotlight on Pakistan's human rights violations in Balochistan during his 2016 Independence Day speech. Though India has raised the issue at the UN a few times, this was the strongest statement on the issue made by an Indian leader. Baloch political leaders and the activists welcomed his stance on Balochistan, and soon after, Karima Baloch made an emotional appeal to him.
आपको बलूचिस्तान की बहनें एक भाई की हैसियत से मानते हैं और आपसे ये उम्मीद रखते हैं कि आप बलूच जेनोसाइड बलूचिस्तान में वार क्राइम्स और ह्यूमन राइट्स वायलेशन के खिलाफ इंटरनेशनल फोरम्स पर बलूचों की आवाज़ बनेंगे और तमाम उन बहनों की आवाज़ बनेंगे जिनके भाई लापता हैं.
These injustices need the world's attention. Pakistan has a terrible track record of upholding human rights, but its brutality in crushing the Baloch dissent is appalling. In a shocking revelation, a Pakistan army general has admitted China's role in crushing the Baloch freedom movement in Pakistan, saying Beijing has given him a 6-month task to end the freedom struggle by Baloch people. He said,
China has deployed me here to crush the Baloch movement and has given me a 6-month task.
Calling Iran the biggest enemy of Pakistan, Ayman Bilal, Major General of the Pakistani Army, went on to say, and we quote,
China has paid me a salary and a large sum of money and officially posted me here for their regional interests and to thwart Iran's conspiracies against the China-Pakistan economic corridor, as it is a kind of investment in regional interests.
China announced an economic project in Pakistan with $46 billion in 2015, of which Balochistan is an integral part. With the China-Pakistan economic corridor, Beijing aims to expand its influence in Pakistan and across Central and South Asia in order to counter US and Indian influence.
You can say mass displacement started in the region. The army, they usually first try to, send a message to the locals, vacate this valley within, you can say, 24 hours or 48 hours. Then at once, helicopters, they reach at that area, start bombarding, and then artillery, and then the forces, they come to those towns, valleys, and then whatever remains they found, they try to steal them, and then they try to kidnap the male members who are, alive or left back. And so a mass displacement was highly started from that region. We were thinking at that time it might be, because of the Pakistan army, but we were not analyzing this thing that there is another force behind Pakistan asking Pakistan to clear all these areas. But with the passage of time, now we have, today, we have, clear information that China was continuously asking Pakistan to clear those areas.
Chinese will protect their interest. Most probably, at the beginning, Pakistan told them, oh, there's no problem, we'll fix it. Of course, they realized they cannot fix it. They could not fix it for the past 70 years. They will not fix it. But Chinese are giving them more strength and more arrogance. They started working with the same means. One is propaganda, the other one is ruthless killings and abusing and threatening of everybody.
Balochistan has an oceanic coastline that stretches along with one of the world's most important shipping routes, the Straits of Hormuz. The CPEC would link Pakistan's southern Gwadar port in Balochistan on the Arabian Sea to China's western Xinjiang region. It also includes plans to create road, rail, and oil pipeline links to improve connectivity between China and the Middle East. Baloch political parties have termed it a conspiracy and vowed to resist it at all forums. Media reports about Pakistan government's plans to fence the port town of Gwadar for security reasons have also sparked a controversy.
Chinese are behind Pakistan. Chinese are trying to cage and destroy Baloch because they want to develop Gwadar as the next Dubai.
Brahmdag Bugti is the president and founder of the Baloch Republican Party. He is the grandson of Nawab Akbar Bugti, the Baloch nationalist leader killed by the Pakistan army in 2006. Bugti fled to Geneva in 2010, but is determined to continue fighting.
Stop objecting! Stop genociding!
The percentage 2017 and 2018 and 19 and now, but it's getting worse and worse. It's getting worse and worse every year. There are more kidnappings. Like kidnappings from the Secret Service, and more incidents of army operation to air and ground, and again. More cases of torture and illegal detention every year.
Despite the obvious dangers, these Pakistani dissidents refuse to be muzzled.
It's destruction. We cannot describe it, what is happening with us in Balochistan. Why is it happening to us? Why are they doing this? Only they know. It's a kind of destruction. We fear that if they know that I'm talking about this destruction in Balochistan, maybe they will pick me up and dump me after killing me.
They tortured us. They gave us electric shocks while we sat down on our chairs. They hit my right foot with a rifle butt. I'm in pain when I walk. They hit my head with a rifle butt. I had 6 stitches on my head.
Opposition members in the Pakistani Senate have criticized the way the mortal remains of activists Karima Baloch were treated before she was laid to rest in Balochistan. The international outrage at her death has not died down. But will the sacrifice of hundreds, if not thousands, of Baloch people matter to the international community?
Every day we hear news or cries that there was abduction, there was illegal killings by the Pakistani army, military operations, each and everything. But still the people are highly motivated.
Is not negotiable. They all want independence, and they will get it.
The Balochistan Liberation Army, also known as the Baloch Liberation Army, is a militant organization based in Afghanistan. The BLA is listed as a terrorist organization by Pakistan, United Kingdom and the United States. Since 2004, the BLA has waged a violent armed struggle against Pakistan for what it claims as self-determination for the Baloch people in separation of Balochistan from Pakistan, and has been involved in ethnic cleansing of non-Baloch minorities in Balochistan. The BLA is operating mainly in Balochistan, the largest province of Pakistan, where it carries out attacks against the Pakistan Armed Forces, civilians and foreign nationals. The Baloch Liberation Army became publicly known during the summer of 2000, after it claimed credit for a series of bombing attacks on Pakistani authorities. Although the Balochistan Liberation Army was officially founded in 2000, the media, along with some analysts, speculate that the group is a resurgence of prior Baloch ethno-nationalist insurgencies, and more specifically the independent Balochistan movement of 1973 to 1977. According to some sources, Misha and Sasha were among the architects of the original BLA. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you would like to view more